Hello, I'm here to help you guys do some of your missing or your extra credit assignments slash missing work. For the ones that are working on extra credit, they've been having some issues with some of the information that is given from these type of problems. So I'm going to do two examples with you guys on how to graph them, how to find out whether it opens up or down, etc., etc. But before we do that, let's first talk about whether a graph is narrow, wider, or has no stretch, which is always one of the questions in the problem. So when we're talking about being narrow, being wide, or having no stretch, we are addressing the first number that is given to you in your equation. It is normally the first one that is in front of your x squared. You may have a number or you may not. We'll talk about each case. So if you're given this kind of equation, is a number in front of the x squared, it should always be the first thing you see. Or if you have parentheses in your problem, it's a number outside of the parentheses in the front. Still, this is still an x and a second power. So it's always the number in the front. If that number in the front is a 1, or you don't see anything at all, what do we always assume that it starts with? If I see just an x squared, we assume that it has a 1 in the front. So this means that this is the normal size. This is a regular size parabola. It's when a is equal to 1, it has no stretch. This is the regular size. So now, if your parabola gets tall and skinny, this is called narrower. That means that the number in the front is a number that is bigger than what it was before, a 1. So if you're given a 4, if you're given a 3, a 2, even if it's a fraction or a decimal, as long as it's bigger than 1, x squared, then that means that it gets narrower, tall, and skinny. And finally, if your number is less than 1, but between 1 and 0, so anything that's a fraction or a decimal that falls between 0 and 1, it is wider, and it gets a little bit shorter and a little bit fatter. So this is like the comparison between all the parabolas. This is regular size, no stretch, narrower, and wider. This is a is equal to 1, a is bigger than 1, and a is between 0 and 1. Alright, so that's always a question that you're going to always get. So now let's talk about the other key features of your parabola. So when you're doing these type of problems, I always give you a link so that you guys can graph the parabola and see what it looks like. It kind of takes you to decimals.com so that you can, whether on the actual assignment itself or it actually takes you to the website, Decimals lets you graph the parabola and look at the key features. So it always gives you the most important points on your graph. So here, it gives you your x-intercepts, your vertex, your y-intercept, and the other x-intercept. Alright, so I got my parabolas from Desmos. So let me show you what your parabola should be looking like. This is x squared plus 2x minus 3, and this one right here is negative 4, parentheses x plus 1 squared plus minus 1. So we're going to be talking about both of those. Notice that this one, like we discussed earlier, has 4 important points, versus when you look at this one, only 2 important points came up. So let's talk about first whether it opens up or down. So when you're graphing your parabolas, if both ends of your parabola keep going forever up, like this one, it means that your parabola opens up. It makes a regular U shape. If both of your edges go forever down, both of your lines go forever down, it means that your parabola opens down. It makes an N shape. It's an upside down parabola, an upside down U. Alright, when it opens up, that means at this point, at the very, very bottom, do you think that will be a minimum or would it be a maximum? So it would be a minimum because it is at the very, very bottom. It is the most bottom point of your parabola. It is a minimum. There's nothing that you can have that is going to fall below that number. All right, and when it opens down, that means that there's going to be a point at the very top of the parabola, and there's nothing that's going to be above that point. So that means that this point is a maximum. All right, so that's how you just decide between up and down, minimum and maximum. All right, so I'm going to fill in the rest of the information for this one, and then we're going to fill in the rest of the information for the other one. So let's talk about first what the vertex is. So the vertex is called the turning point of the parabola. So when your parabola starts coming down, it goes back up when it hits this point right here. It is also the very center of the U shape of the parabola. It is the very middle of the parabola. So the vertex, you can look at the middle and find where the vertex is. It is also where your minimum is. So here our vertex is -1, -4. All right. If I were to draw a line going straight through, down the parabola, down to the middle of the parabola, this line is called your axis of symmetry. This line that goes up and down goes right through -1. It goes always through the x of your vertex. So if you look at your vertex, our x was -1, so that means that my axis of symmetry is x is equal to -1. All right, zeros is another fancy way of saying x-intercept. Remember that there's 4 words that mean x-intercept. X-intercept, roots, solutions, and zeros. I ask you that question over and over on your extra credit work, just so you remember that all of those 4 words mean the exact same thing. So when I'm looking at my zeros, there are 2 x-intercepts right here. There's one at -3, 0. And one at +1, 0. Sometimes you might have 2. Sometimes you might have 0 x-intercepts because it doesn't cross at all. And 2 times you're going to have 1 x-intercept. So make sure you check to see how many times does it cross the x. All right. When you look at your y, there should always just be 1 y-intercept. So here, where does it cross on the y? At 0, -3. Make sure you write it correctly. Make sure it goes always 0, your y. For your x-intercepts, make sure it's a number, 0. Because if you switch them around, you are not going to get the right answer. All right, for all the parabolas that we're doing on your extra credit work, for the domain, we always write the same thing. It has all real numbers. Normally, that's the fancy R that has 2 little sticks by it. But because that's not really a symbol that we use on like the extra credit work, I want you to type in the words all real numbers when they ask for domain. For your range, those are your y's. So if you look at your y's, they're always going to fall above your vertex, right? For when it opens down, up, when it opens up, all your y's are going to always be above that -4 at the bottom. So if you look at it, if you think about it, just like how we did the axis of symmetry is the x of the vertex, your range is always the y of your vertex. So if you look at your y, it is -4. All right, and the final question that you got to ask yourself are your y's going to be always greater than, or they're always going to be less than -4? When it opens up, that means that every y is going to be greater than -4. So that means that you're going to use greater than or equal to. All right, that's going to be the opposite. All of that information is kind of the opposite for when it opens down. All right, so when we're looking at our vertex, still the middle of the parabola is at -1, -1. Your axis of symmetry is the x of your vertex. So I'm going to put x is equal to, you look at your vertex, my x is -1. All right. This one, did I say it had, or if you look at it, does it have any x-intercepts? Does it cross the x at all? No. So that means that in this one, I want you to put that it has no x-intercepts, none. But it does have a y-intercept. It crosses at 0, -5, right here. For domain for all the extra credit assignments, domain is all real numbers. And finally, your range. Well, this is the only thing that is opposite for the parabolas, the one that opens up or down. The range, now instead of being everything above it, everything greater than -1, you're going to have numbers that are going to be below -1 or less than -1. So here I want you to put range, y is equal to or less than or equal to -1. You're looking at the y of your vertex. All right, and that is all I needed to discuss with y'all today. So if you need more help, if you have any questions, just text it to me, or don't text them to me. Put a little comment by your assignment, and I will get to the question that you have. Okay, thank you. Have a wonderful day.